Hey, welcome to Kyle and Cody's Cult Cinema Cast. I'm Kyle,
I'm Cody.
and this is a movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, which is really ironic because I've been on a whole Arnold Schwarzenegger kick recently. I just downloaded the first two Terminators because I've never seen the Terminator films, so I was like, oh, let's go watch that. And then it turns out we were just running this coming up, which was kind of like one of the older kicks that I had was I wanted to watch this film because it's a Stephen King novel. Who he wrote it under the pen name Richard Bachman. But and then the other day we were talking about something I can't remember what, but I remember the original like Conan the Barbarian film, and I was like, oh, I want to go sit down and watch that. And then we didn't end up, or I couldn't find it on Tubi at that point in time. I could probably find it now, but not on Tubi. Um, but in doing so, I found the 1990 uh, Conan the Barbarian TV series.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
it's not Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it's like a different like foreign bodybuilder.
I had a similar kick where I watched I was curious what the Conan cartoon was like.
Oh, so
Just
yeah,
because
kid.
I was just
So it's set in the
yeah,
same.
I think it's by the same name as that TV
Yeah,
show.
Conan the Adventurer
But
came out in 1992, and then the live action TV show came out in 1997. I want to say it might actually be Canadian, but I could be wrong. It was shot in Mexico. Ralph Mueller, which also has another weird tie-in with the podcast because he was in the movie Cyborg, which we were talking about doing, or that we did do
yeah,
one of those two.
it's the sister film to the film we did last week or whatever.
Okay. So he's a German national champion world builder in 1984. And that's really all I know about him. Besides the fact that he was in Conan the Barbarian. He is also in the, he had a cameo in a song called Maria, I Like It Loud by Scooter, who was a German techno music band, which was really good in like 2003.
No, I think the cartoon's dumb. It's like it's just it's not like it's just it's like they fight it's like, oh yeah, we're fighting lizard people in the Middle Ages, in like the David Icke sense. Like shape-shifting lizards are impersonating world leaders and Conan needs to go beat them up.
It's like some
So
real world whatchamacallit shit, like uh conspiracy theory shit where people are like, the government's actually lizard people. Speaking of government, while we're here, this movie has two, not just one governor, but two governors of the United States that ran, I'm pretty sure, roughly around the same time.
was Jesse Ventura actually elected governor at one point?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I think so. Yeah, he was the governor
I
of,
know he ran.
I think he was the governor of Minnesota. He was elected
Huh.
governor with the Reform Party and is the party's only candidate to win a
Huh.
major government office. So, yeah.
Yeah, I,
Entered politics in
I, I, I
1991.
only vaguely have ideas of what his politics are,
He
so
was
I'm
the
not really.
38th governor of Minnesota, and he was in office from 1999 to January 9th, 2003, which I think is different from Schwarzenegger, who was elected in 2003 and ran till about 2011, and then wasn't able to run again because of term
Yeah,
limits. But yeah, two governors,
yeah.
which I really wish that they would start dealing with politics the way they did in this movie.
Oh, that reminds me. One of the covers to the book, The Running Man.
Hmm.
I'm gonna look it up again because I just remembered that novel. I think it's the image they have on the Wikipedia page. I'm just gonna look at it real quick. But yeah, this movie and oh yeah, the original like the Richard Bachman Running Man book, cover. It says, "Welcome to America in 2025. When the best men don't run for president, they run for their lives." And I just like thinking, it's bold of them to assume the best men run for president, but if those same men want to run for their lives, it's probably a net good. Yeah, the movie's made 5 years later, and takes place 7 years earlier. I think they're mostly doing it because they wanted to put it 30 years in the future, whereas like the book Stephen King just picked whatever year he wanted to put the future in, which means the book The Running Man takes place next year, but the movie took place
2019,
just after the Trump presidency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's hoping both of these movies don't take place in years during Trump's presidencies.
Kind of funny because according to Stephen King, who wrote the memoir on writing, memoir of the craft. He wrote that he wrote the Running Man, this whole entire book, 219 pages in a single week.
Bastard. That's all I have to say. That's just bragging.
Well,
that's just.
I mean,
like this is why this is why people are jealous of Stephen. The writers get jealous of Stephen King, not because he's good, not because he's particularly good, because he's just like, oh yeah, I put out a draft in a week, and like, fuck off. That's why people don't like it. That's why other writers get annoyed at him, because we just get like hideously jealous at that statement.
I couldn't.
And I mean, there's also
10-page daily output. So he tries to write roughly 10 pages per day.
Some people not everyone who can do that output is like a good writer. That's the other side of this. But it's, or at least like is, I don't know, maybe like even being able to put out that bit of output, if you're even like sort of good and like willing to put out like drafts, get things into the pipeline at a decent rate, you're probably good.
I mean, here's my opinion on it. You can do a lot of shit when you're just hopped up on cocaine for like 3 days straight.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, yeah, we like people that are fans of Stephen King. There's people who are fans not of Stephen King, and I'm not exactly here to like fanboy over Stephen King. I like some of his work. I do not like all of it. And this is, I'm hoping the book was a lot better than what we saw on television, at least.
I read a synopsis of the book,
mm-hmm.
because obviously I don't have time to find the book, and I'm a slow reader, so and I'm a slow reader, and I just started God Emperor of Doom, which, speaking of things that are going to get people mad, I'm reading the third Dune book without reading the first two. So I don't know. That's just the craziness I do sometimes. I frequently start massive series from the middle. That's just how I roll sometimes. Yeah. The book, because that's what we're talking about. I did read a bit about the book. It's essentially there's still a game show, but it doesn't really function the way it does in the movie. In the book, it's more of like a man catcher situation where like they send a guy out, say, okay, here's X $1,000, and you have to evade our trackers or whatever we call them in the movie for 30 days. And if you get to the end of the 30 days, we give you $1 billion. And you also have to like do like taunting. You also have to leave behind like letters to go into the mail system in order to continue winning the event. So yeah, it's more of you got to get wherever you can. There is sort of a deal where the main character tries to sneak onto an airport, but that's at the end of the book where it's at the beginning of the movie. So yeah, it's kind of a all right. Yeah, it sounds actually pretty good. The book ends with like him spoilers, um, with like him flying a plane into the evil, like whoever's in charge of this place. Yeah, so the hero of this book ends the book with like a preemptive 9/11 sort of situation. Like a lot of people were pointing out. Yeah, in retrospect, like a lot of people were actually pointing out that you could weaponize a commercial airliner uh, long before it actually ended up happening in real life. I think even Tom Clancy also had a book where he had a guy weaponize a commercial airliner and like do basically a 9/11 sort of situation. It's always weird looking back and just be like, oh yeah, yeah, this guy just sort of like people just sort of knew 9/11 type stuff was gonna happen one day. Like people are just like, one of these days someone's gonna take a commercial airliner and fly it into some shit, and that's not like a conspiracy talk. That's just like this omen of like, oh yeah, it's a real dangerous thing that's probably gonna happen one day, and it just did, and it was a pretty one of the worst versions of what would have happened with that sort of scenario. But yeah, we're sort of moving on. But yeah, the book does sound sort of cooler. Though I have a fondness for like that sort of dystopian science fiction where the hero has to like murder himself somehow at the end to save the universe or something. I kind of have a fondness for that.
I'm trying to figure out just exactly what people were thinking when they were doing the captions for Jesse Ventura's political career. So if you go under political views on the Wikipedia page of Jesse Ventura, there's Bush administration and torture in one of his whatchamacallit. And I'm assuming it was because he's talking out about torture used in the Afghani war or Iraqi war.
Guantanamo,
I guess.
both.
Yeah, okay, on the issue of waterboarding.
Go on.
I was just wondering if he's doing the torturing or if he's getting tortured, and that's why they caption it like this, but it's a weird breakdown.
No, I don't remember all of it. I think he was anti-Bush. He's also like he said he ran for the Reform Party, which yeah, I have no idea what like I like political party names where I can like sort of guess at their politics by like reading their name. Like Conservative Party, okay, I get that. Liberal Party, okay, I can extrapolate some stuff from that. Socialist, whatever, yeah, but it's just like Reform. Like I think there's actually like there's sort of a a slightly further right wing party in Canadian history, which I don't know that those guys in Jesse Ventura would get along. And those are like 10-year removed. And then I just don't like vague political party names. Honestly, it's just a pet peeve of mine. But yeah, and then there's this is the second movie that has both these guys in it. Like Predator also had like both Jesse Ventura and Schwarzenegger in it. So and Ventura is actually in that movie a lot more. So
yeah, I actually couldn't 100% tell you who he ended up playing in the actual movie. So just a couple of
he was Captain Freedom in this.
Just a couple of points onto this front. As of 2021, a new film adaptation of the novel is in development. With Edgar Wright as a director and Michael Bacall penning the screenplay. However, as of 2022, Arnold Schwarzenegger has proposed a different film, The Running Man 2, as a sequel to the 1987 film.
Do the Edgar Wright thing. That's all I have to say.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%.
Like I'm not like I think your brother's a decent Edgar Wright fan. So I think he'd be excited about that. But also, I just like I am more interested in like seeing the book get adapted, like the book actually get adapted.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be kind of more interesting. And this movie isn't like good enough to get a sequel. I'll be honest. It's actually sort of budgets. It's actually sort of like a light flop.
Mm-hmm.
Its budget was like 32 million and it made 82 million or 38 million. Sorry. So that's not great actually. You typically need to double your money. So I think I did also see a lower budget somewhere too.
I guess Michael Bacall has worked on Scott Pilgrim vs. the World with Edgar Wright, so they're fairly used to. And he's written Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, 21 Jump Street, and Project X. So he's got a fair amount of... and they're also remaking Weird Science?
I don't know that they should be doing that.
Yeah.
To be honest. I think that's literally been an example of films that don't age well. Because I think, isn't that movie about like a bunch of couple teenage boys bringing a adult woman back to life and then having that woman like have relations with them?
Yeah, and the new one's supposed to be starring Channing Tatum, which doesn't really make sense to me considering that he's in his like 40s or 30s. So,
I mean, maybe you make the movie with like them higher, like bigger. I don't know, with like adults. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, going off of the original, they were teenagers. You should probably age those up a couple of years at this point.
Yeah, so this movie's also made by Paul Michael Glasser. Is an actor director. He's in Fiddler. He is an actor. He's in like Fiddler on the Roof, and he plays Houdini in The Great Houdini and stuff like that. He's only had a few. This was in like a period where he was doing directors, because before this he did a movie called The Band of the Hand, and then after then this is his last movie for 5 years, and then he does The Cutting Edge, then The Air Up There, and Kazam. But he does but he's actually doing a bunch of television directing during that period too. I think he does some directing on like Starsky and Hutch. It looks like Miami Vice is big ones. That show Las Vegas. That's a show my dad liked in like the mid to late 2000s. He did a few episodes of that, and yeah, those are the big ones. He's looks like he's done like 6 episodes of each of those or whatever. But yeah, he's sort of Schwarzenegger gives him shit about this movie because he was sort of like he was on board and then he wasn't, and then Schwarzenegger says like he makes the movie feel too he shot like a television show, which I don't know that that's the problem with this, Arnold. I don't know. This is too TV, Arnie. I think maybe there's some issues in the script department. Instead of doing like a man tracker thing, it's it's where they get the idea for the show American Gladiator, actually. The producer for that show literally just like says, hey, we're going to make The Running Man, but with no like murder. Yeah, so it's a sort of reality TV. They got like they got the villain named Killian, literally, played by Richard that's not. Yeah, Richard Dawson. What's all he in? Oh, I think he's the family. Yeah, he's one of the famous Family Feud guys. That's why I thought it was.
Would you really call him the villain at this point in time, though?
Killian?
Killian?
Yeah.
I wouldn't call Killian the villain of the story. I'd call him am I crazy? He's just the game show presenter, right?
I think it seems like he takes like a production role.
Okay, but
like he's calling shots.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, he's playing literally his Family Feud role. He's one of the bigger Family Feud hosts, and he literally is just doing an evil version of that.
This is also his final film role. in 1987.
Yeah, I can see that.
Also, he was in,
I guess there's also a 1963 film called The Running Man,
he was
which is different.
in all 168 episodes of Hogan's Heroes.
Was he one of the main? He might have been one of the main guys in Hogan's Heroes.
I don't even know what
That could be
Hogan's
possible.
Heroes is about. So,
Hogan's Heroes is about like a bunch of guys fighting Nazis.
oh, it doesn't actually star Hulk Hogan.
No, this is an older show. That's a Robot Chicken bit, actually.
Oh,
Like where they do a bunch of old WWE where they kick a bunch of all the WWF guys and put them in like the same Hogan's Hero situation.
Huh.
Yeah.
Crane.
Yeah, there are a bunch of POWs that are like repeatedly escaping like their prison camp and fighting the Nazis.
He was a con man in Hogan's Heroes. He played the group's pickpocket, magician, card sharp, forger, bookie, tailor, lockpicker, and safecracker.
Yeah, it looks like he definitely was one of the bigger guys in that show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that show's from like 1965.
So, like, vastly predates Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, he might have, like, Hulk Hogan was alive.
Okay.
Yeah. How old is Hulk Hogan?
Like 70s or 80s now?
Like, cause he actually wrestled for a long time before WWF started. Because he might have even been wrestling at that point. Okay, 53. So yeah, he'd be 12. Yeah, that show came out when he was 12.
Huh.
So I imagine he's a big fan.
There's just this weird sub-list of, like, actors in this movie who became, like, who are known for being in other things. Like, a lot of the big names within the Running Man universe are all, like, ex-pro wrestlers, including Jesse Ventura. I'm assuming a lot of these. Jim Brown, who was a football fullbacker. Two of them are musical people, like Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac is
Professor Tanaka, he's a boxer, I think, wrestler. He's the guy that plays Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a wrestler.
Somebody named Lenny was a crime novelist. Quite the weird cast.
I think we get started on the movie. The movie begins in the awful year of 2017. Trump's just been elected president, and the economy is in shambles. There's a protest going on in the street, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, playing a man named Ben Richards, is flying a helicopter and is doing a sweep of this protest, and says that, and does a scan of it and finds that there are no weapons among the protesters, and then his commanding officer back at base radios for him to murder everything that moves. So he, of course, refuses, despite the fact that he's a cop in, like, this dystopian world. How he ever got this far without, like, being willing to murder anybody. Because, yeah, I mean, Trump will just let you get away with that. Like, Trump will literally pardon you for murdering a bunch of civilians, especially if they're Iraqis. Look it up. He actually did that. That's the thing you do. You can't make fun of me for saying that. Don't be shitty about me about being political. That's a thing he literally did. So yeah, Schwarzenegger, being one of the weirdly being one of the few moderate Republicans that still lives, decides that he's going to refuse orders, and he gets restrained by the rest of the flight crew, who goes on and does a big what they call the Bakersfield Massacre. And they actually end up pinning this event on Ben Richards, calling him the Butcher of Bakersfield. So, 18 months later, Arnold Schwarzenegger's in some sort of work camp. Everyone in this work camp's got, like, bomb collars on them that blow up if they cross this little barrier of pylons. Which it just occurs to me, for, like, a work camp situation, this has got to be very expensive. Like, that bomb collar probably costs, like, what those guys make in a year or something.
I mean, it can't be...
Like, that's got to be, like, a few $1,000s.
Yeah, it all depends on what size of an explosive it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's electronics. My point is, you could probably just like do the same job with like two M16s. Not that the M16s help.
Fair enough, but then you also have to like militarize people for the longest time to sit there, watch over these people in the bomb camp, rather than just like,
which they're also already doing.
Yeah, but you're also paying their salary. You don't have to pay a fence a salary.
Yeah, just hire a few more guards, and you won't have to buy these really expensive bomb collars.
But it's like a one-time purchase. You just buy.
This is what no one ever thinks of.
That set up. I don't know.
Like, how many of these things do they have? Or like, do they have to make 100,000 of these for the entire country? What the fuck? That's going to be expensive. Just give a bunch of guys some M16s. You have army guys just lying around.
You also don't have to house and feed a fence.
Well, I mean, the fence still costs money. And these barricades, they're like maybe like 6 feet apart. Those are also a whole other thing. Those are expensive too.
Yeah,
like you got to put like.
Once again, I don't really understand the whole entire mechanism that like is causing them to run this place, but also getting like into an argument about the semantics of whether or not this fence was cost effective. We both don't know the numbers. Like,
I mean,
maybe.
Look, if there's one thing I know about fascist economics is that it doesn't work. Like, this is definitely a waste of money. It's not efficient, and I can tell you that right now.
Well, shit.
It's just I'm granted I'm entirely taking the piss here.
Oh,
but yeah,
maybe next time President Donald Trump needs you like help on fascist economics, maybe you can become his right-hand man and like go tell him with what electrical fence is more economically viable instead of letting him run his own course.
No, because I could do that job for 5 minutes before he fires me for saying like, hey, maybe we should not like keep razor wire in the middle of the Rio Grande and drown a bunch of children with it. Let's not do that.
And let's not try and make Mexico pay for our exploding electrical fences.
Yeah, like, I mean, no one who's going to like, far be it from me to like suggest that like they shouldn't have razor wire in the Rio Grande used exclusively to drown children. But yeah, that's just I think that just because it disqualifies me from the job. I have a moral compass, so that would kind of reject that doing that.
It's really fun to just try and hold up like Donald Trump to fascist dictators and see how far off he just generally is, which is really hilarious to me because the other day I was curious about ChatGPT, so I typed into ChatGPT, hey, write me a speech in the style of Donald Trump talking about how he needs to get Americans back to work after a zombie apocalypse, and it was pretty fucking accurate. So
I mean, see the Podcast of the Living Zombie episode about the dawn of like the Army of the Dead, where we make a bunch more of these jokes.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, the bit might be getting a little bit overdone at this point in time, but also like bit's pretty fucking accurate. So
it'll be overdone when we can stop calling him out when he's dead and not like in danger of becoming a president again.
That's gonna be an interesting next couple of years.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, we'll see. Like, knock on wood, I guess.
Yeah.
But God. At least he's not on Twitter anymore.
Yet.
Like, it's sad. Like I've said this before, but that's him not being on Twitter was genuinely good for my mental health.
Fair enough.
I think. Yeah. And it's not going to end till he's dead. Let's face it. He's going to need to be dead one of these days, and then it'll all be over.
Or in prison.
We're gonna move on. It's one of those things where he probably should have just been in jail in the 90s. Let's be honest. There's probably something there. I'm not remembering my whole biography of them. Maybe some things regarding his second wife, first wife, one of those. There's some things there. Moving on. No, we're not gonna. Moving on. God, the answer's probably not no. Let's just face it. Let's move on. No, you can't assume logic in this situation. It was abandoned long ago.
Fair enough.
Logic died in 2015 when Fox News shot it in the fucking head, and now we're here. Yeah, our hero Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Ben Richards teams up with a couple guys. Weiss, who's like a computer guy, played by Marvin J. McIntyre. He's a like tech guy. He knows tech stuff, and he's going to like hack into the on-site computer to turn off the fancy electric fence. And I mean, one more thing about that. I'm pretty sure my barbed wire fence has its posts further away than this thing does. Like you could probably have one of these things every 40 feet if you knew what you were doing. Then again, these people from the 80s, maybe they just don't know that.
Being 1987 technology, supposed to being held up to what 2017 technology, and like 2025 technology in the book. So I don't know. Maybe no, Stephen King was.
I'm pretty sure we just have this.
Was way more accurate than.
I'm pretty sure we could make this technology.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure if we made like actual bomb collars with actual laser sensors, we could do like this better.
I don't think you really need anything like super hard or anything. Like if we were to take out the whole entire bomb collar concept and we were just like, well, there's an object in zone A that needs to be exploded once it hits zone B, then basically, like if we were doing it with an alarm, for example, it's fairly straightforward or simple, right?
No, this is probably doable. And also, the other guy with him is William Laughlin, played by Yaphet Kotto, who's a guy who's a big-looking guy who looks small next to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
How tall is Schwarzenegger? He's 6'2". Schwarzenegger? Yeah, he's only 6'2", which, I mean, it's not short.
What's that in meters?
I don't know. What type of question is that?
Because I'm looking up the height between him and Kotto. Kotto is 1.9 meters.
I think that might be.
Oh, okay, never mind. I mean, it's just like Schwarzenegger's a lot bulkier, and maybe he was taller than him in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But Yaphet's like 30 centimeters, like 3 centimeters taller.
I don't.
Oh, this is also a movie. They're probably having Schwarzenegger stand on a box the whole time if they need
to make him look bigger.
Oh yeah, actors do this all the time.
Yeah, I know.
You've definitely seen a movie like. I think there's literally like, in all the Iron Man movies, Robert Downey Jr. is literally wearing big platform shoes. He's wearing full on big platform boots the entire time. Because he's shorter than all the other cast members.
Which is kind of funny because like we always make fun of Tom Cruise in like television and media for being super short. He's actually only 5'7". That's not that short, is it?
I don't know.
And I mean, Brad Pitt's like 1.8. So
yeah, Yaphet's definitely not as bulky as Arnold Schwarzenegger, though. So yeah, we got these three. And they team up to sort of do like a prison riot, and they manage to escape this prison, this work camp, and find their way to the underground resistance forces because Weiss and Laughlin are resistance fighters, whereas Schwarzenegger's just like a survivor, which is kind of realistic, honestly. It explains why he's a cop in this universe. Like in this universe, like it's different than being a cop in our universe, which, that we're not going to get into that. We did our piece on the LAPD last week. So moving on. Yeah, they end up getting out of there. Schwarzenegger says he's going to make his way to his brother's place, and his brother will help him get out of the city. So he goes to do that, and he finds his brother. He sneaks his way to his brother's place, and he's hanging out there for a little while. and eventually some some lady walks in. Our female lead, Amber Mendez, played by Conchita, Maria Conchita Alonso. She is and she is doing 80s stretches in like a nightie for whatever reason, like a silk nightie. It's odd. This movie's being very 80s with itself. So Schwarzenegger's just like, wait, who are you? Are you like a friend of my brother's, or are you my brother's girlfriend or whatever? And she's just like, what? No, your brother. That guy hasn't lived here for like a month ago. He got taken away for re-education. And as she's saying this, and all freaked out, to add to her freaking out, there's been a news blurb like that's saying like the butcher of Baskerville. I don't know, whatever the one in LA is. They're saying that Ben Richards is on the loose, and so she starts screaming, but Ben manages to restrain her and looks through her stuff, finds that she has a travel pass, and it decides to hold her hostage and get her to get him through an airport so that he can fly away. So yeah, that's a plan.
Which is, it's kind of funny that they're like, oh yeah, Ben Richards is trying to flee America. Where should he go? Hawaii.
I don't know. Maybe maybe it's easier to get off the island there or whatever. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Or get out.
Just go to Mexico or Canada. Unless America owns all of those at this point in time.
Yeah. I don't know maybe there's a better way to do it. I don't know. So yeah, he takes her to the airport, and eventually she manages to get away from him for a second and screams like, oh yeah, I've been kidnapped. And yeah, so that ends up getting him chased and eventually captured. So he gets captured and brought to a in the bits of these scenes, there's been like some foreshadowing about The Running Man, which is a TV show in this universe where various fugitives and enemies of the state are chased after by stalkers. Yeah, stalkers is what they call them. And they have to go beat up these criminals and kill them, which is a bit of a show. And while Ben Richards is on the lam, the producer, Killian, says, hey, we should talk to the Department of Justice and say, hey, you want to capture this guy for us and we'll put him on the show? It'll make the show really cool. So they do that. And they get Ben Richards in custody and say, hey, you should do the show or else we're going to kill those two guys you escaped with, which he does. So he's just like, yeah, okay, fine. I'll do the show to save these two people. They did help me. They did help me get out of that prison camp. So I owe them that. I don't want to leave them to death. Besides, he'd just be going to prison anyway. So he gets set up for the show. He gets a bunch of random injections, which I don't know what the deal with those are. They're not really brought up again. And also, before they get into the actual game show part of the movie, Amber sees on the television that they're reporting that 2 people got killed by Ben Richards, which didn't happen. So yeah, so she's starting to have some doubts about this whole thing. And Ben had mentioned that he had been framed earlier, so now she's a lot more amenable to that line of thinking. So a little bit later in the movie, she's going to sneak into the back room and try to find the footage of the in-flight black box footage of Ben Richards allegedly taking control of that helicopter and murdering those civilians. Next, we get a very long dance sequence produced by, choreographed by Paul Abdul.
Yeah, I never really...
with music by Janet Jackson.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's just like a really long sequence.
Mm-hmm.
People in the 80s were really into those leotards. That's just, That's just how it is. A lot of 80s style I can get behind, but I've never been like a big fan of the leotard stuff. Maybe it's just that I think of it, and every time I think of it, I remember the silly ones from Star Trek: The Next Generation. So yeah, Ben Richards gets brought up on stage. They rip away his prison uniform to show that he is in this silly yellow jumpsuit, and then they strap him into a sled sort of thing, which they're going to launch him down a tube eventually. And yeah, and then they're just like, oh yeah, also, we're gonna send the two guys that helped them escape from prison into this game as well, breaking the promise. Which, yeah, this is See, in the book, they did a thing where they like murdered Ben Richards' family, and that was like sort of the equivalent to this. So yeah, it's sort of kind of let down of that, but it is kind of it's a moment. So we're getting there. We're gonna have these three be the main party of the show for a little while, and they bring up that the rules of this game are they have to escape capture for 3 hours and make their way through 4 quadrants, and then if they win, they get to live in Mali.
Yeah,
Did you have some there?
yeah, like at least within in the universe of the Hunger Games, they at least try and keep up with the winners of Hunger Games. Like these guys were just like, oh yeah, they definitely retired to a nice farm upstate and were never heard from again. Like,
no, these guys are definitely revealed to be dead later.
yeah.
I'm also just really not a fan of this like trope.
What do you mean this trope?
If I'm being honest, like oh, this is a game. This is a big murder game that placates the masses. I just don't like. I don't think that trope's good. I think it's like it's made to facilitate action. I don't think it's actually like a poignant like critique of society.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like it dates back to like the ancient the Romans would do big Olympic games to like placate the masses and make them happy, and I don't find that to be like a super good argument. I don't know. It's just I feel like it's like overstated as like a solution. Like I realistically don't think people are more likely like like having a bunch of entertainment is like going to reduce social change. I don't like it. I don't have like a whole essay about this, but it's just I don't feel like it's a like it's an action set piece. I don't feel like it's actual like it reaches the level of being like an actual thing that we need to be like holding up as like interesting story structure. Like I never got where like Hunger Games was getting put in schools. Like there's some obviously good stuff in a lot of these movies about like actual dystopias and like actual statements about authoritarianism and fascism and what have you. I don't know that like this on its own is a good thing. I don't know that how many people are actually that comfortable with watching like a literal death game. Like I think like I don't know that we have. I think people in the past are like a lot more like, especially like, it's one thing in the past where people are a lot more desensitized to death because it's a lot less firm. But I don't think it like something that you can transplant into like a modern audience as well. I don't know. Maybe I don't have like a whole. Maybe I just need to like do more thinking about this and like get my thoughts in order a bit better. But yeah, I just don't think it's a compelling thing, and that's not just a critique of this movie. I think it's like I think it's not a strong idea in the Hunger Games either, really. So
yeah,
and to be fair to them, these like death games scarcely ever in like the literature ever like actually stop social change. There's almost always like rebellions in the background.
Mhm.
Like I think in this movie there was a rebellion, in Death Race 2000 there was a rebellion, in Hunger Games there's a rebellion. Like it's not actually, it's just a sign of decadence. And I think we get lost in it as like the games itself is like a statement against us instead of a statement against the government, which I think is maybe where you more want to go with that.
Fair enough.
I don't like how many of these shows are there like people that are like, yeah, I really don't want to watch it. It just it's gross. I don't like it.
Well, even at
And
that,
that's
like,
never really brought
also,
up.
I think this is one of Stephen King's second or third novel of the whole entire like futuristic death games going on. Because there was the Running Man, there was a second one, that the Great Walk, where kids are taken from around the continent and are forced to walk all like the whole length of America. I do believe, I can't remember how far it goes in the book, where there's a big prize of people who are mainly doing it to try and get out of poverty. Is generally what it boils down to in the long run. But
And that's more what the book of The Running Man is about, actually.
fair enough.
Like in the book The Running Man, Ben Richards is just a poor guy who's trying to feed his family.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they get shot when they're after all this is laid out. Schwarzenegger looks to Killian and is just like, "I'll be back," and Killian's just like, "Yeah," in reruns. Which yeah, this movie is just blatantly referencing Terminator, and that's a lot less cute when it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger doing it than it was when like the guys in Nemesis were doing it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that was kind of like, oh, cute. The guys who are parodying Terminator are referencing Terminator. And it's just like, in this one, it's just like, the guy who was the Terminator is referencing Terminator. This is a lot less fun. But yeah. So our three heroes get shot down the tube slide. And it's a very long tube, seemingly meant to disorient them. And they get shot out, and they have to walk through the first sector and are getting like teased by guys on motorcycles for a little bit. In the meantime, Amber finds the records for the cockpit footage from the helicopter at the beginning, which we had also seen some edited version of that earlier when they were like playing up Ben Richards, where they had edited it to make it look like Ben Richards had done it. So yeah, that was the thing. So she has this footage, and then she hides it on her person somewhere for the rest of the movie. And this footage is held on like a little post-it card, little sheet of plastic. Yeah, impressive that she managed to smuggle this out. Actually, I'm not even going to make a joke about it, though the movie tries to.
Yeah.
But yeah. In the meantime, our heroes get pursued by the first stalker, Sub-Zero, played by Professor Tanaka. Yeah, no, I guess he's just he's just like a hockey player with like a razor stick. He's kind of cool. Yeah, it's a weird little angle. They took the guy. I guess this is pre Mortal Kombat, so yeah, it's super weird. I don't know if Mortal Kombat took any inspiration from this. Although like maybe just the name, and that Tanaka's like, I think he's native Hawaiian actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was born in Hawaii. Which I don't know. He could also be he could also be Asian, but he's from Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and also the costumes for all these guys are terrible. Like when I've heard this movie described to me a few times, and I always thought like, okay, the guys get really cool costumes, and maybe like one of the costumes is actually good. Literally, like the Dynamo later in the movie, he has a pretty cool costume, but the rest of them are just garbage. Like literally just garbage on things. Sub-Zero is chasing them around this hockey rink, and eventually traps Weiss in a net trap thing. Before eventually Ben grabs a bunch of razor wire, I'm sorry. Because there's a difference between barbed wire and razor wire. So yeah, he takes some razor wire and manages to lasso Sub-Zero over the neck and killing him, which shocks the populace. And everyone's just a little bit in shock. It doesn't seem like they say later in the movie that this is like all these the hosts of this show getting murdered is like helping ratings, but it seems like the opposite. Every time one of these guys gets murdered, everyone just like goes silent. And like it's like the script implies that people are excited about the stalkers getting murdered, but it doesn't seem like that way on screen a lot of the time. So yeah, Ben kills Sub-Zero and stares up at one of the cameras and says, like, with a straight face, "Hey, Killian, Sub-Zero is just now plain zero," which is, this movie has some of the worst Schwarzenegger lines I've ever seen.
Yeah, no,
they're desperately trying to get a new Schwarzenegger quote.
Not good.
And it does not work. There is not one good one. It's like if every part like line read he gave was like that bit in Predator where he throws the knife at the guy and pins him to the wall and he says "stick around." Like every line's like that, and the quotes aren't nearly as good. It's awful. So yeah, they're making it into the next quadrant, and they're gonna get chased down by a guy called Buzzsaw and a guy called Dynamo. Dynamo has a pretty cool suit. He's just got like electricity, like little lights on his suit, and it looks really cool in the dark because they do like a thing where he like wanders out of the shadow with his glowing lights, and he kind of has like a Darth Vader thing going on. And then there's Buzzsaw, who's a guy with chainsaws. So they're gonna go after our heroes next, and Amber's gonna be sent into the fray too, because she got caught going through files. And she miraculously manages to find the group really quickly after. And just somehow she just finds them, even though they're being really sneaky and they're trying to sneak up to it. Apparently, the entire communications array has a big, for the government broadcast station, is like in the grounds of the Running Man game, which... yeah, that's a contrivance, but whatever. This movie doesn't have very good writing, can you tell? So our heroes try to hijack the signal. And Laughing and Ben end up having to bite Buzzsaw while Amber and Weiss hack into the system. We get a big chainsaw, hand-to-hand scuffle between the two men after Schwarzenegger manages to hook the chain on the back of Buzzsaw's motorcycle to a bit of rebar and gets him to fall off of it. Laughing is injured in this fight, and it appears later he's mortally wounded. Schwarzenegger, Ben does a very brutal kill on Buzzsaw where he is forces the Buzzsaw that they're both holding up between Buzzsaw's crotch area and splits him in two. Well, not quite splits him in two. He just goes in for a little bit, but yeah. The place where we least want a chainsaw. So yeah, Dynamo shows up and uses his electric laser gauntlets to shoot Weiss and kill him. After Weiss and Amber had memorized the codes to the satellite array for the broadcasting. So Amber starts to get away. She is captured by Dynamo, who's about to kill her, but then Ben shows up and starts to save her. Dynamo has been driving around on a dune buggy. I don't know what the word for this type of car is. I'm gonna call it a dune buggy. But soon after, he just sort of tricks Dynamo into going off a ledge, and the car falls over, and Dynamo's helpless, and Ben refuses to kill him because he refuses to kill an unarmed man, which, ethically dubious, maybe he has a right. He would have been right to kill this guy, but Also, yeah, it does kind of just prove Ben's point that he's not a murderer.
Also proves the point that they're just straight up trying to rip off a fucking Predator at this point.
Yeah, I mean, among other Schwarzenegger movies.
Does he do this in other movies?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about this so much, but like they've ripped off most of the like half of his filmography at this point. Like, what year's Total Recall? 1990. Yeah. So, oh no, that's after this.
Yeah.
So yeah, they can't be ripping off Total Recall, but
And I mean, this is him coming right off of Predator. This and Predator were made in the same year. I didn't even think of that. I thought Predator was like a couple of years earlier, but 3 years after.
Yeah, no, it's same year. Yeah, I guess.
The Terminator.
Yeah, I thought it was a little later.
Conan the Barbarian was 82.
Oh yeah, he's fully a meme in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're not making good use. Yeah, they're clearly trying to take advantage of this. Yeah, so he manages to go off, and next they call up the next stalker, who's called Fireball, who's a guy with a purple flamethrower, a flamethrower that fires purple flames, and who has a jetpack, which he basically never uses.
Yeah.
Yeah, he uses it to get to our heroes, and then he never uses it in the fight. So yeah, they wander into this our heroes wander into this building, and they find the corpses of the former winners of the game, or at least Amber does. Meanwhile, Schwarzenegger's apparently just hiding in the roof, because when Fireball finds Amber, she's just like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna go set you on fire, and then like Ben appears from the roof and rips open the cord to Fireball's flamethrower, and then they set him on fire, killing Fireball. After this, people start betting on Ben Richards, because he's seeming they're like, oh yeah, they're doing a lot of gambling throughout this entire thing, and they're just like, they ask one of the old ladies in the audience, who do you think's gonna get the next kill? And she's just like, oh, Ben Richards, I think. So yeah, people are cheering for them. So as our heroes make their way to the resistance base that was apparently hidden in this place as well, yeah, they literally have half the entire resistance set up in this place. It makes very no sense. So yeah, our heroes have met with the resistance leaders and are going to set up a big radio thing, they watch the show and find that Jesse Ventura's character, who we've seen like twice before, has been set up in a ring with two actors. The TV station deep fakes the faces of Amber and Ben onto, so that they can pretend that Ben and Amber have been killed, so that instead of like doing this stupid game thing, they can just send in the army to go deal with them. Which, yeah, that's actually a pretty smart move, honestly.
Which is really what I was going to bring
that's
up
clever.
earlier.
I'll give them that.
It's kind of funny that they don't just do this in like accordance to local like TV series. So
You mean?
Okay, so in this movie, they already have somebody caught and who are clearly criminals, who put them out and recapture them. So what I'm saying is when you get to a certain extent, why not just like, oh, this guy's clearly wanted, let's put out like an APB on this guy, and then hire hunters to essentially do it with a TV film crew in the background.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe a thing they could do. I don't know. We'll talk to them about expanding their networking next year.
I mean, the amount of crazy shit that has happened on like live television, this isn't too far off from the truth, except for they're not straight up just murdering these people on camera.
Okay, so the rebellion realizes that they're in trouble, so they're just picking up all their fancy guns, and they're gonna go raid the TV station. Schwarzenegger's just like, hey, I don't know that you can do this. You only have a bunch of kids here. They need someone with experience. And he's just like, well, I figured you were volunteering, the leader of the rebellion says. And he's just like, you know what? I told Killian I'll be back, so yeah, I guess I don't want to become a liar, do I? So yeah, our heroes are going to raid the TV station.
And this is what's his face? This is Mick Fleetwood. This is the leader of the
Fleetwood
resistance.
Mac?
Yeah. The drummer of Fleetwood Mac. He's
Huh.
the leader of the resistance in this. Alongside, I think his sidekick is Stevie, and he's played by a rock guitarist who is the son of musical composer and performer Frank Zappa, who I do believe.
Hmm.
Okay, I don't know which band this guy was in, but might have just been a composer.
I think he's just like that. I think he mostly just goes by his name, I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it looks like I can see like a video of him saying Frank Zappa and the Mothers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just one of those bands that doesn't quite stick. Yeah, no, it seems like he just goes by his name for the most part. He might have had a band with him initially, but
Fair enough.
so yeah, we're going on. The rest of this movie is just a straight gunfight where the government ends up gunning down a bunch of civilians in the studio on live television because they're still broadcasting all this live. Because then, the resistance has actually managed to hijack the radio signal, and they showed the evidence that the three previous members of the guy of three previous winners of Running Man have been killed, and they show the unedited footage of what happened with Ben. So yeah, they've exposed a lot of government stuff today. So they have their gunfight. Mendez gets in a fight with Dynamo, who threatens to sexually assault her. She manages to kick him in the nuts and fires her gun that she has at the ceiling to electrocute it, to cause his electric parts to short circuit. The movie ends basically with Ben strapping Killian into one of the sleds, which before they had like gone into like nets so they wouldn't like crash into anything at the end of their trip, and without the nets, Killian just goes and flies into a billboard where he explodes, and then everyone cheers everywhere across America, and Ben and Amber share a look, and then they kiss to some 80s song. I think it's called This Is No Game. It's 80s as shit. And that's the end of the movie.
You know what I finally figured out why I was making this weird connection in my head. Between the entire film, this movie is campy. And it's campy like Batman Forever. Or Batman and Robin.
Yep, I see what you mean.
And that also had Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. So I think my mind just made a weird connection to the parallels between these films. Because Arnold Schwarzenegger definitely played, what's his face?
Yes, Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze. I was thinking Iceman, but that's X-Men. And then on top of that, this guy fought a guy who used ice powers, or I really wouldn't say used ice powers, but was a hockey player. Super campy, super bad.
Yeah, why Hawaiian guy's theme is hockey? I guess he's allowed to be into hockey.
I mean, I'm not saying there's a bad thing about being into hockey, but making it your whole like persona is kind of
That character's childhood must have been weird. Like he's just like all the other kids are into whatever island people are into, and then he's just like, I saw the I like watching the NHL. My favorite team is the Atlanta Thrashers. I don't think that team existed in the 80s. Hold on. I don't know why he's into the Atlanta Thrashers either.
pretty sure the Atlanta Thrashers don't exist anymore.
They don't, but they might exist. They might have existed when this movie came out. No, no, they totally didn't. Although this movie takes place in 2017, so he could have watched the Atlanta Thrashers, and and maybe they just don't dissolve in this timeline.
Yeah, the Atlanta Thrashers were eventually bought out to became the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, we liberated. We didn't take. We liberated a hockey team from the southern United States and brought it back to God's country here in Canada.
It's just funny because actually, like,
doing the righteous thing.
The first incarnation of the Jets relocated to Phoenix to become the Coyotes.
And we'll get the fucking Coyotes back, motherfucker, too. Don't you keep an eye out. They're struggling. They'll be back.
Don't remember if the Coyotes, I don't think are a team anymore.
No, they're still around. They're just they're not doing too well. I think Bettman or whatever should dissolve them and then move them all back to Quebec, and we'll get the Nordiques back. Yep. Or give them to us and just have them set them in Saskatoon or something. I don't know.
So the Phoenix Coyotes were another team that lasted till 2014, and now are the Arizona Coyotes.
Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you give the movie, Cody? Any closing thoughts or no?
Badly campy, and I don't think it should exist.
Yeah, I'm on that too.
I don't feel like the dystopian universe kind of works well in this universe when the movie in itself is so campy. It kind of deteriorates away from the whole political undertones that the movie is supposed to have in the long run. So probably a 3 out of 10. I don't hate the whole retired whatchamacallits coming in to be professional wrestlers or hockey players or whatever fucking list that they come from. I think there was a opera singer coming in at some point in time to be one of the catchers.
Yeah, Dynamo was an opera singer.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
Yeah, just weird 1987 bullshit.
I'm gonna give it a 5. It's fine. There's some cool stuff in it, but I could easily talk down to a 4. It's not his best work.
Whose?
Schwarzenegger's.
What do you think Schwarzenegger's best work is?
Honestly, just probably Conan, Terminator, and Predator.
And if you had to rank his political career, what would you put him at?
What am I ranking him?
1 out of 10.
Among. I don't know. He's not as bad as a lot of Republicans, but he was on some anti-violent video game bullshit.
Fair enough. Do you think this is the reason why he's on some anti-violent video game bullshit, or?
I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
I give him a 3.
I don't know. I don't know what he did as governor of California, so.
Next week we're doing Metal Storm, the direction of Jared Sin.
Destruction of Jared Sin.
Destruction of Jared Sin.
Destruction of Jared Sin. The direction of Jared Sin would be a very different movie.
Oh yeah, I suppose. Anyway, show's over. You can all go home. Goodbye.